I was going to say it's a lovely day here in Sydney. It's actually been really, really all over the place weather. There's been hailstorms, there's been a tornado, which if you know anything about Australia, we don't get tornadoes. There was a tornado. Thankfully no one was injured. But at the moment, as you can probably see, it's clearing up and it looks actually like a nice summer's day. And on Monday, we had our Freedom Day, so people are out and about. We're allowed to go outside without masks, which I did today, and I've got to say it felt weird, but it's also just really nice to see people out and about again and families being able to be together. Look, all that said, I wanted to bring you sorority guys up to date with what's happening with confessions. Today I spent quite a deal of time on some pretty important work with Confessions 2021. And I have a few people who have confirmed they want to be in Confessions 2021. And they were sort of the first 4 people I reached out to because I knew even before I announced I was working on this that those were 4 of the people that I really wanted. And I brought them up to speed today with some of the people who I've invited to be part of Confessions 2021. And the emails I got back were quite humorous because they were sort of shocked at who's on that list. Now, I'm not going to disclose who's on the list. Suffice to say, and I think I mentioned this before, this year with Confessions, I wanted to take a slightly different tact. So if you didn't know, last year, the original or the inaugural version of Confessions ended up having, I opened it up to the public, we ended up having 160 queens from around the world in the book. Not all of them were title holders. In fact, some of them were surprised that I let people who weren't title holders in. But the idea of that was to give it a go, see if the concept would work. And pretty much everyone who submitted was in the book. That's why we needed 2 volumes, because it was so huge. Whilst that worked, I wanted to change it up this year. So this year, last year was paperback, this year is hardback. Last year was black and white. This year is going to be full color. And last year was a 6x9 inch. This year is going to be a lot like basically the size of an A4 piece of paper, which is the largest size I can do with Amazon. And it's going to be a coffee table book. And this time around, I wanted to reach out to some different people. It's not to say that I won't be opening it up at all, but let's just say when the emails start coming back, if we can start getting some yeses, and I'm positive that we'll get a few at least, and even a few would be good, then it's just going to be a very, very different feel. So I actually spent today reaching out to some people, and these are names that if you've been in pageantry for any amount of time, you would know these names. And it was just funny because I was getting emails from the original 4 that I put in, 3 of the original 4, basically saying, oh my God, like the list, and oh my God, how am I going to be able to compete with the photo shoots from these guys? It was just quite funny. But moving forwards, obviously bringing out the sorority in November, these projects that I've previously done in the past, and the new ones I'm going to do, I am going to be focusing more on opening up those sorts of opportunities to sorority members. I think that makes a certain amount of sense just without me explaining it. But the other aspect of it is, I think I've mentioned this as well before, that VIP membership for the sorority won't be free. It won't be expensive. It won't be free. But having that element of paying to be a VIP member acts as a kind of filter. And when I was originally having discussions with sort of my core group as to a few core topics about the sorority and which way we should head, everyone unanimously said that it should be a paid thing. And the reason we said that is not because we're planning on making huge amounts of money with it. In fact, I'm certainly not going to be able to, not that I won't be able to do that, but that's not the point. So I won't be charging huge amounts of money, but I did want to charge something, because what I found in the past is that if you open it up to everyone for free, look, 80% of the people, do the right thing and treat you with respect. But there is that 20% that just takes up 80% of your time. I know that when I opened it up last year, for example, to last year's confessions to the public, I got a submission from a Satan worshipper, a Satanist. Now, when I read the email and I saw that she had said she was a Satanist queen, my brain went, well, it can't possibly mean what I think it means. So it must mean something else. So I'm looking up, like, what does a Satanist mean? What's a Satanist queen? But it turns out it was a Satan worshipper, a devil worshipper. I kid you not. Then there were other people who just sent in submissions where you could tell, like, they'd written it on the back of a piece of napkin. It was just horribly worded, no grammatical checks whatsoever. The image was the wrong size. And I just don't like working with those sorts of people. There's no upside really for me. I don't enjoy working for them because those people are just looking for a bit of cheap exposure. And they're obviously... I don't have problems with helping people with their exposure because I've done the interviews, over 200 interviews for free. So I've certainly done my share with that. But it's more the mentality of working with someone. You want to work with people who have the same sort of core values that you do. When it comes to pageantry, you would know this if you're watching, I'm very much for substance over style. Having said that, style was probably more important than substance originally, like at the beginning, initially, not originally. But then once you've captured people's attention with style, you want to ideally have some substance behind it. And I just felt working with people for free was attracting quite a lot of, let's call them freeloaders for want of a better word. And I really just wanted to make my life simpler and more enjoyable. So with projects moving forward, such as Confessions, I will obviously be offering it first to, if there is any sort of opportunities, I'll be opening it up to sorority members first, because I know those will be my people. So if this is the first sorority story you watched, or you've watched all of them up to this point, or somewhere in between, if you know anything about me, I'm going to assume that you do if you're listening to this or watching this, you know the sort of person I am. What I'm going to encourage you to do is, if you want to work further with me and be sort of the first people to get access to the opportunities that I'm going to create, then you need to join the sorority. You don't necessarily need to join VIP if you can't afford it, you can't pay for it, you don't want to, I understand. But even just signing up to early access, you'll be on our email list and you'll get that weekly email, and you at least know what opportunities are out there. Because this is going to sound like bragging, take it for what it is. I know that some of the opportunities I create in the pageant world are unique to me, that no one else is really able to offer. That's why Confessions did so well last year. So this is not me just bragging, I'm certainly not that sort of person, but there's a reason why we had 160 submissions within a couple of weeks. There's a reason that I did have to turn some people away. There's a reason that when I had an Instagram competition, one of those tagging competitions to give away a copy of the book, it had, I think, over 1,000 submissions within the 2 or 3 days that I had it open. I think it was 2 or 3 days. Even when I had a 24-hour competition, it had hundreds of entries. And you got to understand, to have 1,000 entries when you've kind of only got 2,000 followers, you know that you're onto something, and you know you're offering something. I knew I was offering something that was of value, something that you guys wanted. And things change with time as well. I started this whole pageant project journey just doing interviews, and I never really wanted to say anything because I thought my job as an interviewer was to shut the hell up. You know, if as an interviewer you're doing a lot of talking, I think it's a bad interview, and I still believe that. But over time, I'm sure you would have noticed over time, the last few years in particular, maybe kind of with COVID, so many people are doing interviews now, right? Not all of them, not even the majority of them do it like me. A lot of them do the Instagram live route, which is fine. I have my reasons why I don't do that. But there's so many people doing it now that these days when you say you're doing an interview, no one really actually cares, if I'm being honest, because there are so many interviews out there. Now, there's a few key differences and there are a few key queens that people are still going to want to listen to. But overall, let's just say the engagement with interviews has dropped. So I had to sort of refigure, what am I going to do? And I still want to do interviews. I still want to do podcasts. But starting the sorority. The idea that I could start a sorority, have a core group of people around me that not all shared all of my beliefs. I certainly don't think everyone thinks like me, but had that core fundamental belief that pageantry, there could be a few changes we need to make in pageantry, and that pageantry, as great as it is, as many opportunities as it's provided, could be so much more. And maybe a bit of a fundamental shift towards substance over style. I'm not saying that it's been all style over substance by any means, and I think you need to look on a system-by-system basis as to what each system promotes, and, to each their own. But this idea of having a group of motivated go-getters together to really have women supporting women, and not just have that be a catchphrase, but to really offer professional networking, upskilling of your professional skills, maybe even offering career opportunities, maybe even overseas. That is really exciting to me. That's what the sorority is about. And that's why moving forward, I will be offering opportunities such as confessions, primarily to that group first. And then, yes, if there's other opportunities, of course, I'm still going to be offering things to the public. But I wanted to let you know that. So if you've listened this far or watched this far, I really want you to know why I'm starting the sorority and why I will be in the future offering most of the opportunities that I create towards that group, the sorority group, and also why I'll be working more and more to find key partners, key collaborations, as I mentioned yesterday with Pageant Brand and the day before with coaches, trying to find key figures who can really, really help you, but offering that primarily to sorority members, because those sorts of people are in demand. They can't help everyone, and I want to, if I'm going to bring them on board, I really want to make sure I'm sending quality people their way who aren't going to waste their time, and who are willing to pay for their time as well. So that's it for today. So I've updated you a little bit with what's happening with Confessions 2021, and if you're not following me already on Instagram and Facebook and all that good stuff, then do that, because that's where I'll be keeping you updated. And if you want to partake in more of the opportunities that I've created and will create in the future, then make sure you signed up for early access at the PAGEANTSorority.com. We're going to be opening up that early access to the public 1st November, which is just over 2 weeks away. So I wanted you to know that. I'll leave it there for today. Hope you have a great time. Sounds like everyone's out and about, because we can be. I'll speak to you tomorrow. Bye for now.